Ahem. Yuri, according to Wikipedia, is a genre of Japanese media focusing on intimate relationships between female characters. While lesbian relationships are a commonly associated theme, the genre is also inclusive of works depicting emotional and spiritual relationships between women that are not necessarily romantic or sexual in nature. In our case, though, all these recommendations are gonna have some sort of romantic involvement, so, yeah. Here are some pretty cool Yuri that you should read. You open the first page, and there's really not much to take away from it. A girl with a bandage on her face is getting ready to start the day, and a scene in a classroom that looks like it could be from a fantasy series. And then the second page casually announces that the main character's roommate was killed in battle. I love this genre so much. I Want to Love You to Your Dying Day, or Kimishinu as it's nicknamed, it's a manga that I never knew I wanted until I finally read it. Combining magic fantasy, slice of life high school romance, and themes of war is certainly a heck of a combination, but one that comes together rather beautifully. In a world where a magical school for orphans trains them to become soldiers in a war that has gone on for longer than anyone can remember, Sheena is simply another cog in this never-ending machine, expected to continue on with life as normal even when someone she knew just disappeared like that. Things take an unexpected turn, however, when her new roommate ends up being a girl she first met covered in blood in the middle of the night. The innocence of her appearance sharply contrasting the blood of those she killed splattered all over her. It turns out that her name is Mimi, which is the name of the girl rumored to be the school's secret weapon, a magic user far stronger than everyone else, and someone who's seemingly invincible. That's supposed to be this little girl right here. The story follows the relationship of these two as we also learn more of what kind of world they're in, and what exactly Mimi really is, but more importantly, go through the lives of the manga's various characters. It may seem like this series would have a big focus on action given the emphasis on war and magical combats, but that really isn't the case. You'll have quick moments and glimpses into what battles are like, but the story is mainly from the point of view of those who aren't capable of fighting. In particular, Sheena, a girl who hasn't really excelled at anything, exhausted and injured after field exercises, and never having the bravery her peers possess. She's terrified and resentful of the system she's been placed in, where people fight, get hurt, die, and everyone else simply brushes it off and moves on as she feels utterly powerless. This is why it's so brilliant to pair her with someone who is so important to this never-ending war. Despite acting so childish, Mimi is a monster on the field, capable of killing without second thoughts, and will accept any pain she has to endure. The lore dropped about her is very fascinating. Months after reading, the moment still sticks in my head where she comes back as a bunch of dismembered parts in a bag, and when told to revive herself, she does just that. The reoccurring visual of this bag is a haunting one that perfectly highlights the brutality of this character's existence. This brutality leads to a lack of understanding the fragility of life, as she's unable to fully grasp the severity of a funeral she attends on her first day of class. But despite that, she is still a kid filled with so much innocence in life as she grows heavily attached to Sheena and forms a very sweet relationship with her. What I adore about Kimishinu is how it's able to blend together the darkness of its world with mountains of cuteness that creates a contrast that I haven't quite seen before. At the beginning of a chapter, you may have Sheena be in complete disarray from the fact that her first kiss was essentially stolen by her new roommate, and by the end of the chapter, she'll have her arm brutally sliced off during a class training. The next chapter will open with her dealing with the shock and horror of such an injury as she contemplates the life she has, and then the chapter ends with her coming to the realization that she was pretty much kissed again by that roommate in order for her arm to heal. This constant back and forth of light and dark elements is one of the manga's greatest strengths. It gives both the peaceful and emotionally filled moments between its characters and the moments of tragedy even more impact than if they were separate. Watching these two dorks influence each other's growth over time is incredibly captivating to watch unfold. You could say I'm a sucker for stories about powerful characters paired up with someone who allows their humanity to emerge. There's also the other pairing of this series in which talking about them involves major spoilers, but their story is just as engaging as our main two in its own way, and is one of the most heartbreaking I've encountered in a Yuri thus far. The art style for this series is really charming as well. It allows for the characters to look simple or very detailed when the situation calls for it. Helping this is the dynamic paneling of the series. This manga is very solid at pacing out its dialogue and allowing for scenes that are light with the words. There are many times throughout where the visuals will do all the talking, with panels that are always somewhat loose with their layouts, hardly ever settling for a page that's a simple set of squares. You'll find that each page is rather distinct in how panels are placed and angled. It really goes a long way in heightening each scene, especially for those very tense moments. There isn't an emphasis on action like I said before, so instead you'll be dealing with the dread of these characters hoping their loved ones return from fights unscathed. and the emotional aftermaths that come from such battles, giving an emotional texture to these characters' relationships. I know I've also mentioned this before, but can I just talk about how cute this manga is? Like, Sheena and Mimi are so cute that your brain will combust into flames at several points. I was screaming into my pillow after reading one of the latest chapters. Like, you can't just hit me with how adorable they are after a few months without a chapter. I fear that I will continue to have nuclear reactions every time a new one is released. As a whole, what we have here is a story about people in a cruel world doing whatever they can to support the ones they love. Those with strength enduring pain and sacrificing everything if it means their loved ones can live peacefully, while those that feel helpless finding out what they can do to make a difference in even the smallest ways for those that fight, as both sides of this coin connect with and grow closer to one another. I don't know if it'll be for everyone, but give this manga a chance and I believe you'll find a story bursting with so much humanity and warmth. I don't want to leave off with the impression that this is a manga about misery. It's a very lovely series that captures so much of what made me fall in love with the genre in the first place. If you want to check it out for yourself and follow along with it, fan translations are readily accessible online, and it will begin officially releasing at the start of 2025. The Moon on a Rainy Night is one of those manga I checked out on a whim, and it's quickly shooting into one of my favorite Yuri the more I think about it. Describing the basic premise for this one is honestly pretty simple to do, but it's everything the story does with this setup that had me hooked and excited to read the next chapter. On her way to her piano lesson, Saiki Kendaichi accidentally bumps into a beautiful yet quiet girl who passes along as quickly as she was encountered. Coincidentally, she finds out her first day of high school that she sits right next to her. Her seemingly cold and distant vibe is followed by the teacher explaining to the class that this girl, Kano no Ikawa, is hard of hearing. As she clarifies though, she does use sign language. She's able to lip read in order to make out what people say, and is perfectly capable of talking aloud. She doesn't want anyone's help, and she'd rather be left alone. Saki's attempts to make a connection with Kanon are originally met with neglect. She believes that the two of them would be incapable of understanding each other given the different normals they live in, and that she's better off making friends with others. However, it's through her classmates that she finds out how Kanon used to get bullied in middle school. The disgusting words spewed from them, such as doubting whether she actually has trouble hearing, or claiming she plays the victim card to get what she wants, ends up giving Saki some clarity as to why Kanon acts so guarded. This small bit of understanding allows for a connection to forge between the two girls, as an act of kindness from Saki allows Kanon to break down some walls in front of her. Someone who can't hear well, and someone who's kinda slow. It's just too perfect. This opening chapter paves the way for a high school drama that is as enriching as it is charming. Saki feels like she still has so much to learn about Kanon as a person, while Kanon deep down is very happy to have someone by her side, despite how things panned out the last time she let someone in. The two of them become incredibly close as time goes on, but this also leads to Saki having to hide her own feelings. When it comes to her repressed romantic attraction to girls, Kanon is who she wants to keep this from the most. I love so much of what this story is doing. This manga delves into subjects such as equity versus equality, repression, alienation, and does all of this with incredibly solid character writing to boot. I was surprised at how attached I got to Kanon. At first appearing calm and collected, it was a delight to see how expressive she really was. She can still come across as somewhat cold, but when given the chance to talk about something she's interested in, whether it be a book or a TV show, she'll light up like a light and go off without a care in the world. She can be surprisingly awkward too. Even if it seems she's content with the wall she puts around herself, she can still get very lonely, and her attachment to Saki is understandable and incredibly endearing as a result. The story so far has allowed for her to connect with others besides Saki, and explore her own interests since she can no longer pursue being a pianist, and seeing her break out of her shell has been incredibly pleasant to see. Shout out to one of the side characters, Tanabe, who is this absolute bundle of joy who's also capable of rambling non-stop about their interests. I swear, she energizes every single scene she's in, and also writes a novel as a hobby. She even has philosophies on writing that are the exact same as mine, which is... wow, I felt a bizarrely close connection seeing these words said out loud. Saki too is someone that I believe many will find themselves connecting with. Even with her tendency to overthink things, she still makes an effort to be kind towards others regardless of what she is currently facing. That's just the kind of person she is, and it's no wonder Kanon was drawn to her. The various intimate moments they spend together often throw her mind for a loop while Kanon is left very confused by her reactions. Even with the personal tension within Saki, there are still plenty of close moments between these two throughout, and I'm sure it'll leave many enamored with their developing relationship. The paneling and art are also incredibly solid and are able to bring out the life in both the dramatic and the sweet moments. Just look at how they depict Kanon realizing that she lost her hearing, as the silence of reading these pages feels even more devoid of sound than usual, or the comedic contrast of Kana pinning Saki against the wall while saying this into her ear before it cuts to the two laughing at how ridiculous this conversation really is. While there's not too many volumes in English currently, each chapter is incredibly dense with story, even compared to some other monthly series I follow, while I also never feel like it's dragging things out. The writing of this series is so well crafted that each chapter ends up being fulfilling in its own right. I'm sure there are plenty of high school dramas you know of, but The Moon on a Rainy Night is one that handles its endearing moments, drama, and bits of comedy excellently, while also telling a story with themes that I believe many will get something out of, making it a manga I'd highly recommend you check out if anything I discuss has piqued your interest at all. I adore it to bits and am desperately awaiting more chapters. Bibi Reedon is quite the peculiar girl. Everyone is scared of her and calls her a psychopath, but all that she has on her mind is Peter, the popular pretty boy at the school who Bibi has an intense crush on. So much so that when she witnesses him talking to another girl, let's just say she does not take this very well. Under the guise of wanting to become her friend, Bibi invites this girl to her mansion with the plan to do things. This all gets interrupted, however, when the girl she invited reaches into her bag and pulls out a board game, which leads to the two spending the rest of the night hanging out, playing games, watching horror movies, eating pizza, and eventually sleeping in the same bed together. When this girl shares how happy she was to spend time with Bibi, she takes a proper look at the girl right next to her. The thought of even doing anything to her like she originally planned exited her mind completely. Now just being left with this bizarre feeling that there's someone in this world who was happy to spend time with her. Someone who doesn't just see her as some heartless psycho. For the first time in Bibi's life, someone likes her, and that is very confusing to her. This is how I Love Amy begins, and it has skyrocketed into being one of my new favorite Yuri, which is like, I mean, all three of these are some of my favorite Yuri, but ignore that, there's no bias, I swear. A strong part of the series is the relationship between our two main leads, and while that is to be expected, it's the unique way I Love Amy goes about depicting their budding romance that I find so appealing. Bibi's initial goal is to have Amy help her get closer to Peter, but as the two spend more time together, this goal dilutes itself more and more. She has the chance to get exactly what she wants early on when she's offered a date with him in exchange for no longer being friends with Amy, and at first, this is a deal she accepts with little hesitation, which is one part comedic and another part somewhat sad for Amy. But once she can no longer be with Amy, it doesn't take long for Bibi to revert back to her destructive behaviors that causes grief for anyone near her. This emptiness she has confuses her until she realizes that she still wants to be friends with Amy after all. She'll have many moments like this where her actions contradict her goals, as she tries to understand her feelings and what she really finds happiness in. I'm not the most familiar with the yandere character type, so I can't make a big analysis on how Bibi plays with this trope, but this series does a great job establishing how all her actions are a result of not understanding how to interact with people or express love after being starved of it for years. You get the sense that she doesn't actually love Peter, but the idea of being together with someone she can be close with. Of course, she still goes a bit wild every now and then, you know, old habits die hard. Amy, by comparison, is the perfect complement to someone like Bibi. She suffered through some horrible events related to her family when she was younger, which caused her to not care much for her own well-being and feel like she's a burden on those around her. She's a very reserved and nervous character while still having her own thoughts on people around her, be it positive or negative. She goes along with whatever Bibi wants, which should make this relationship very toxic when you put someone who values themselves before everyone else, and someone who puts everyone else before them, but the relationship ends up being one that inspires growth from both of them. At the end of the day, these are two girls that have been hurt by familial trauma and learned how to heal from their past and who they previously were. Despite how weird I Love Amy may sound, and it is no stranger to having its ridiculous moments, this was surprisingly an emotionally deep and optimistic read that had me invested the whole way through. It's not a very long series and is fully complete, so you can easily read through it in only a couple of days. There's still a lot I haven't delved into, such as how the third main character fits into all this, providing an interesting perspective on Amy's situation, while also being a great character in her own right, but I want to specifically highlight the main couple above all else, as I feel like I barely scratched the surface when it comes to analyzing those two. Did I mention that this series is also pretty funny? Like, this has a very simple art style which still works for those serious moments, but it is great at hiding the humor and making it all just a really fun read. It's hard to say more because I really do feel like I've spoiled enough as is, so the last thing I'll say is go read I Love Amy if you're looking for some peak Yuri that will put you through a roller coaster of emotions. This is an easy as heck recommendation from me. And that's all I got for this video. I'm considering making more videos like this in the future, so if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments as well as recommendations of your own. I gotta say, Mobile Suit Gundam The Witcher Mercury really was the domino that sent me down this path. With all that said, if you like this video, then feel free to like, subscribe, and all that kind of junk. And have a good day.